Over the next few decades, the metaverse will become immensely more advanced and integrated in our daily lives. Some people think the metaverse is just a hype. Others believe it to be the greatest evolution of the internet. Together with the sharpest minds in this space, we are going to explore the future of the metaverse. We want to understand the impacts of this new world, and in this show, we will find the answers. Welcome to Metaverse Mentors.
All right, today we have Riftar on Metaverse Mentors. Thank you for joining me, guys. Before we start, because it's actually the first time I've had three guests on this show, so it's definitely going to be an interesting conversation, I suppose. But before we dive into what you guys are doing with Rift AR and how it ties into the metaverse and plugs into Web3 and all those topics, could you perhaps, Michael, you are on the right side of me, so going with the clock, could you perhaps start with a bit of background about how you ended up in this avenue of Rift AR and becoming more focused on what you guys are doing with the metaverse?
Yeah, so what's really interesting is I didn't like start out as a software engineer, as a crypto guy, as someone that was engaged in the space. I actually studied undergrad finance in uni. But what had essentially happened was me and my brother, we were getting into things like crypto mining back in like 2014, 2015, looking at different things. I was getting into trading. During my time at uni, I'd taken on a bunch of different like entrepreneurial projects in like wine, cosmetics, and a bunch of different things. But at this point, I basically took the opportunity. There was a few different labs opening up on campus. One was in disruptive technology, which is AI, IoT, blockchain. And there was another one that was opening up in augmented reality, virtual reality. And this was, I think, around 2017 or so, around 2017 or so. So I kind of took that different project entrepreneurial streak and I said, okay, what can I do? What can I research? What can I create in this? And actually, what I did was I actually architected kind of what looked like a decentralized autonomous marketplace before we knew what a decentralized marketplace actually looked like. So this was, I think, around 2018 that I actually published, like with my university, like what the architecture of like that would look like, and so on and so forth. You go going with different entrepreneurial projects until COVID hit. The world started going more remote. I tried doing e-commerce for a bit, a little more of the crypto stuff, and I saw Adam, who I met him years ago through bar hospitality. We traded notes on different creative projects that we were working on, and I bought a painting from him. And so we hop on a call, and we start discussing like because different trends that I've been seeing. Like I keep up with like blockchain and stuff, and I saw, hey, digital assets, digital artwork, unique digital assets are becoming more sold as a means for monetization, especially in a digital remote world. So we started trading notes, especially around augmented reality, especially around unique digital assets, and we formulated the architecture for Rift. Actually, I used some of my previous architecture and research to fuel it. So that's a little bit of my background, and now I do software development and architecture full time for this.
Quite the journey. Sounds very exciting. Thanks, Michael. Could you follow up, Adam, please?
Yeah, for sure. I'll start with the beginning of COVID. So I just walked away from a business and I began tapping into an old hobby of mine, painting. I really kind of lost connection with painting. It was something I did all the time as a kid, and I've always been into creative projects, whether it's filmmaking, graphic design, drawing, graffiti, stuff like that. So I began painting. I was painting like 90s NBA players. I was posting these paintings on Instagram. Suddenly my Instagram DMs just started to pop off and people were trying to buy these paintings. So within 3 months, I sold over 100 paintings. And it was, it became like a legitimate side hustle. Michael reached out to me, a friend of mine who we traded creative notes for several years and just were overall just like good friends. He purchased one of my paintings and he introduced me to NFTs. This was in 2020. So, nobody was really talking about NFTs at the time. It was kind of off the radar for the most part. And I began exploring because it just seemed like a way more sustainable to execute art because the amount of like cost I was putting into markers, paintbrushes, paints, canvases, spending money on shipping. And I was like, wow, I can just design this on my iPad and just send it over. And it's got a token attached to it. That's super cool. So Michael and I kind of teamed up and we just have been exploring, researching, and putting out like some smaller projects since 2020 basically. And we kind of just put our minds together and we just wanted a little bit more from the space. We're always kind of disappointed. We're like, this has so much potential. This is the future. What is it going to look like? Let's just start building it. And that's how we came to be Rift.
I'm getting only more energized when I hear you talking about it, Adam. I was already interested in what you guys are doing, but this sparked something extra. By the way, when you started with selling those paintings on Instagram, was this just without an OpenSea, without any NFTs at all, or is that where you got introduced to the world of NFTs? Or
yeah, I was introduced to NFTs afterwards. So I was just painting on canvases with paint. And then I was uploading them on Instagram and people would comment, try to purchase or order other additional commissions and be like, oh, that one's cool. Can you make so-and-so? So suddenly, I was just knee deep in commissions and, I became a full-time painter at that point. And Michael was the one that introduced me to NFTs and digital art because he was just like, hey, this is really cool. I would like to order a painting. Are you familiar with this new kind of trend that's happening right now? And I began to do a little bit of research. I'm like, this is a lot more than a trend. This is really interesting. This makes sense to me because I'm spending so much money on all these supplies just to make a piece of artwork. And at the end of the day, I'm just uploading it online in order to transact with it anyway. NFTs just clicked for me.
so initially you painted your paintings like just with a pencil on paper or some canvas, and later you pivoted to creating digital art, or was that the same during the entire journey?
So it started off just on like pencil, marker, paint on canvas, and then transitioned into just digital art, where drawing on an iPad basically. That's where it transitioned to. And then, we did a collection called the Pixel Blunts. It was a small collection of one units. We have 100% unique owners. The floor is like 2 ETH right now. It's a fun little project.
Oh, got it.
The entire smart contract for it. It's awesome.
Really cool, really cool. Okay, Karolina.
Yeah, so similarly to Michael, I didn't start with tech background anyhow. I didn't really look at Metaverse for a long time. I've been doing bio and now studies bio. But around 2 years ago, I became a crypto world enthusiast. And some time ago, I discovered Metaverse, AR. And since that time, I've been looking into different types of projects and I've been following a lot of them. And then I managed to find, and we just got along on the chat together, and we had a bit of conversation, and then I started talking to guys and to know more about Rift, and then we found out that we could work together. And since that time, we're doing Rift together, trying to make it, wow.
Really, really interesting how that connection got established. So was this on one of the telegrams or in the Discords where you guys got to know each other, or how did that come about?
On Discord. Rift had its Discord community channel, and at the time it was like 80 people in it. And I really, really liked the project, since then. And then along in the chat, and I can probably say that it's almost 600 people now.
Oh, that's almost a 10x in terms of number of people on Discord.
She's very essential for that growth, because Michael and I, we have like great vision. We know how to create really cool products, we weren't necessarily like savvy with scaling at that point. And when Carl came along, it was like the perfect timing. It was just like we caught someone's attention that's interested in this, and she has this really unique background with growing communities that she did with her tea shop, and it just made sense. And as she joined, it just kept growing. And it grew really quick. It was within like a 3-day period we gained all of our audience, and then we did a whitelist, and it was fully subscribed within 24 hours. And Michael and I couldn't have done it by ourselves.
That's really insane, actually. Such a tremendous growth in such a short time, and this brings us.
Too.
Yeah, this brings leads me a bit to a segue, but then I'm also interested, Karolina, what's kind of the secret recipe behind, also from your background, what you did with these? What are the elements that you implement or utilize to make a community grow? And why do you think people choose for one community above one other?
I'll be honest with you. I believe it's mainly because people see the potential in the project. So I wouldn't say there is like completely, recipe that can be adapted. I just think Rift itself, the project itself, the idea behind it, is catching a lot of people's attention. And I think as it caught my attention, as I thought that was a very good project, I think a lot of people that I managed to reach also believe in it. And I mean, I have experience in building the community since I've built my tea shop, and I personally believe, and I know guys also think the same, that community is essential in any type of a project. As long as everyone feels welcome and feels like a part of family, I think they will always come back and feel that they can engage in it. And that was basically the thing that we came up to. Like, that was the approach that we wanted to build, that everyone in our Discord group will feel like a part of family, and that they can always ask any question they want, and there will be always an answer to it. That we will always be willing to answer.
Yes, of course. I can imagine you are not necessarily happy if you have to answer on Saturday night at 5 a.m. But yeah, really interesting. And I think also for the listeners and for the time that we are living in, that the ability and the capacity to build and grow communities is one of perhaps the most valuable assets that you can have nowadays. So let's say someone is watching this podcast or listening to this podcast today, and he's asking himself, okay, I have this idea, I want to do something with Web3, and I want to start a community. What would your advice or message be for them to start out? Because simultaneously, I feel that on Twitter, LinkedIn a bit less, but also on Telegram, there's lots of projects being chilled and being hyped, and it's kind of hard also for me as an investor to select and differentiate between the projects, to how to cut through the noise. So what would your advice be there?
I think the biggest thing is building in public. I think a lot of people, when they come up with an idea, they are kind of scared to like shill it. They're just like, oh, are my friends going to judge me for this? Like, are people going to take me seriously? You have all these questions. Am I going to fail? That's going to be the biggest question that runs through your mind, right? I say build in public, be loud, let people know what you have going on. Because we could have easily taken Rift into stealth mode because we were like, oh, we don't want anyone to steal our idea, blah, blah, blah. But we wouldn't have attracted this early community. Actually, I had a meeting with an investor not too long ago, to be fairly honest. And he was like, oh, well, what's your Discord community like? And at that point, we didn't even have a Discord set up. We're like, oh, we're kind of waiting to bring on a community manager so we have one cohesive message and someone can kind of just be like there from day one. He's like, dude, who cares? Just start the Discord and get some people in there and it will snowball into something. He was 1,000% right. And I'm thankful that he gave us that advice, because it was something we already knew. We were doing it already. We were loud on LinkedIn, loud on Twitter with what we were building. We like to put a lot of teaser videos out there to kind of attract people into what we're building for the future. And I think that's the number one thing, is just building in public. Tell people what you're building, and that's the only way you're going to bring people on that can help you scale it.
Okay, Adam, I feel like we have to join on other call after this podcast to make the Metaverse Mentors Discord, because it's a dilemma I'm wrestling with already for a couple of weeks. But I'm like, yeah, why should I already create it? We are still at the verge, at the beginning, exploring, discovering. But what you are actually saying, just start out in public, and there's not say something wrong that can happen.
And so, like sometimes you can kind of like feel like an idiot because you'll throw stuff out there and then a few weeks later the language might change, or maybe your brand name changes or whatever. That's okay. Like, you're just building an audience, and the idea is that you put enough content out there so when you walk in a room you don't have to explain to every single person in that room what Rift is or what Metaverse Mentors is. The idea is that they ask you about it because they already know what it is because of how loud you are on social platforms. Social platforms are free. Just use them. Post on them. That's literally it. And LinkedIn is actually a really powerful tool because you can curate who your audience is by just adding people, and people are a lot more likely to add you on LinkedIn than follow you back on Instagram, because you can follow 10,000 people on Instagram with the chances of 10,000 people following you back not likely. And as you post, the algorithm's so goofy. I think we use LinkedIn. It's powerful. We use it quite a bit.
Yes, I like it also as a medium. I have two follow-up questions there, because I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I can also imagine that if you and Michael are working hard and focusing on the actual development, that it can be a bit distracting, having those communities, being curious, etc. And simultaneously, you said, for example, that LinkedIn is a powerful channel. I can definitely agree with that. But what do you think the inherent value is of Discourse? Because somehow Discord seems to be the to-go-to medium when you want to chill and grow and scale your project. And that's also for Michael, for Karolina, just ask. Yeah.
I would love to feel this specifically because so there's actually a development methodology. It's open source, but there's actually a really good book on this. It's called The Cathedral and the Bazaar. But there's two styles of software development, which is one is the cathedral, where you have a small elite group of people that do stuff in closed development, and they only release it to the public afterwards. Then there's the bazaar style development, where you open your process up, you open your code up, you basically open it up to the eyes of the community. Now, what's really cool is when we published our light paper, for example, when we're talking about features, when we're talking about how can we better build something for the community, it really helps to have a community, that we can discuss with rather than make assumptions about what they do or do not want. Because there's some ideas actually that came through our Discord, that came through private DMs that I personally, I don't think like the three of us would have necessarily been able to match the eyes and vision of like 600 something people when we're looking at this. So there's an inherent building advantage to being connected to that. And I've actually, there's actually you described it perfectly. There is a very, very fine balance. And I've actually spoken with Kara and Adam about this, that one can't be in Discord all the time and build really good simultaneously. So it's good to have people that can either relay information, or there's information you can look at that say, hey, this is important, this question came up, how are we addressing this? And then the world kind of feeds you information. You get to calibrate everything you're doing for the world, because ultimately when you build something, it's not a selfish activity. You're building for someone, for something, and you have to understand kind of who your audience is. And if we have 600 people, for example, that may jump to several thousand, is we have to be very willing to listen to who our audience is. And that means building and listening at the same time, if that makes sense.
And I think personally also that Discord is a especially useful tool in that area, because it's literally the essence of being decentralized. Everyone can talk in there. Everyone can participate in the channel. And yes, we cannot answer something extremely fast or immediately, but there's other people who can engage into this conversation. And it's not just a list of followers that can look at your post. It's people who can post and literally integrate with other people. So it's very, very, I would say, lively community where everyone can just ask questions and everyone can answer or post something that they would like to share. Unlike, for example, other social medias where you can only participate by adding comment to a post.
Yes, makes sense. Thanks for that clarification. I can definitely imagine how that is of differentiating value. So, Michael, just for you, a follow-up question. You mentioned the two approaches, the bazaar style and the cathedral style. Would you then say that you would always prefer the style where you are communicating everything open, or would there perhaps be some instances in where you would not choose for that approach as an organization or as a project?
So there is, so this starts going into kind of like philosophy, how software is developed, etc. There's a very good quote, I believe by Ken Thompson. He was the original guy that made Unix, which then went into Linux as an operating system, is given enough eyes, all bugs are shallow. If you have enough people looking at something, you will be able to discern what needs improvement much quicker. Because there's simply scaling returns. Microsoft can hire 5,000 dedicated engineers looking at a problem all the time, but if you have 30,000 people all over the world looking at something in a decentralized manner, you have scaling returns in terms of people contributing intellectually, and you have you have less friction kind of that way. Now, to flip it around as well, when it comes to architecture and when it comes to kind of like systems development and design, if you leave the architecture of a system entirely up to a community, you'll have parts that say this or parts that say that. So someone has to kind of be there to put a stake in the ground in the first place, and help, like with the help of the community, to kind of say, okay, do we want this? Do we kind of not want this? How do we calibrate this? Because there's architecture and then there's implementation. So there's a bunch of it. There's There's Cathedral and the Bazaar, and then there's another book called The Mythical Man Month, which kind of goes over this topic, where you have people that kind of architecture, but then you have community that can jump in and help as well.
Thanks, and I really liked your example of the 30,000 people, because that illustrates and exemplifies how next level and game-changing scaling this is as compared to the traditional manner. So the logical follow-up question, what everyone wants to know, what is Rift AR doing? And can you tell us a bit about it?
So what's now? Here's a good question. Would you like me to start high level, bit more technical? What would you say is the curiosity?
Let's start with the level which is most accessible for the listeners.
Gotcha.
How about this, Michael? I'll give the marketing pitch, and then you can slice in with the wizardry.
I like that.
Deal. So what we're building is an augmented reality platform. Allows users to own and build a digital layer that has a direct relationship with reality on blockchain. So what you can do is you can look around through augmented reality through the lens of your phone, and maybe there's a location that you're really interested in owning. You can purchase, if it's available, you can mint it and purchase it, and you own it on the blockchain. We're using Polygon. Once you own it, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. It's not too far off from like actual physical real estate, where you can post something there, you can build a digital immersive experience, you can advertise something there, you can lease the space. That's like in a nutshell what we do. Michael, you can kind of.
Can I ask just a question about that? Because it has been mentioned in previous podcasts as well. I'm a very visual person, and fortunately we use YouTube as a channel as well, so the listener can also view this video. So let's say I'm walking in this room, for example. How should I envision it then? If I have my phone and I am seeing, for example, this ape, then Rift AR has an ability to to show or to render something that I'm not able to see without my phone, right? And then that AR shape or form or entity that can do certain things that you described, Adam. Is that correct, or how should I envision that?
That is correct. What I would say is, if you're familiar with the game Minecraft, what they do is they split up the world into different chunks. So every time you walk into a new chunk or a new area, you load new and different things. So what we've done is we've split up the Earth into geohashes or different latitude and longitude chunks. So people can own these. Geohashes. So to speak visually is when you own this, you're able to edit what's in it. You're able to edit what's on it. So, for example, you're in that room that's on a certain place on Earth, and you're able to put whatever augmented reality assets you want in there. You can put in photos, videos, 3D models, etc. And everyone can see that and interact with it because it's a global persistent state, and it's correlated to that location or that geohash. What's cool is that because that happens that way. It's cool because it happens that way, and it's decentralized and it's resilient, and that you can own what's on it, but you can also lease what's on it. You can showcase something. You can, if you're a tourism agency, for example, you can put stuff up in it. There's a lot of different things that you can do when you can just build an AR. Here's what I want to mention. Because we're trying to build this to be more open source, more bazaar style, more accessible to the community. We want to build this in such a manner that you don't need a proprietary piece of hardware or software to do it. You don't have to be a Unity developer to build augmented reality or scenes in augmented reality for your asset. We're trying to make an easy interface that you can create different things in augmented reality for. So we're just trying to lower the barrier of accessibility to people actually interacting with and using AR, whether that's through their phone as we have it today, or in 5 years, 2 years, when we have more accessible AR headwear and goggles, glasses, etc. And that's kind of where we're going towards. Does that answer your question? Does that help?
Absolutely, and I can definitely see endless use case, because the creativity is essentially is the limit. So that sounds really interesting. But what I also was wondering while you explained that we don't necessarily need hardware or an app. So how do we access this world? And also, if we are viewing riffs or other stuff through your application or service, or what you guys are delivering, is that simultaneous or persistent with the real world? So wherever I walk, I can see those things popping up, or how does that work?
Yep. So in terms of how people access this, what's really cool is, and there's actually not it's actually a more thoroughly underutilized augmented reality is. There's actually over 1 billion iPhones on Earth that support augmented reality.
Wow.
So for now, this is a mobile application. People open up, they look at it, kind of similar to Pokemon Go in that respect. But the way that people can interact with it, it's just not limited to phones. It's pretty much open to any hardware that can support basically feeding data in and visualizing it that way. So it can be, it could be in
GoPro, for example.
Yeah, if GoPros were to be able to support its own proprietary operating system or open source operating system, then yeah. As for persistence, like you're walking around and seeing different scenes and stuff, the way that this is being built is that it's persistence. So if you were walking in from one location and another person was walking in from another location and you both meet in the center, you both would meet and see the same thing, but you would both have different paths and see different things as you're walking along. So it's kind of like like
the real world.
Yeah, it's exactly kind of like that. And there's a couple different features we're working on where you can be more flexible with like where you do, which is it's super nice. But building for flexibility and the future is kind of like what we're going for.
Sounds really incredibly difficult to develop. So I think you are the guy, Michael, who has the honor to do that.
Honestly, if you saw how many energy drinks I consume in a day, well, here the interesting thing about developing something like this is you can be incredibly skilled as a developer, but creativity is, it may not be as like much there. You can be incredibly creative, but not be very. What we have going on with like the three of us is we're able to bounce technicals, we're able to bounce creativity together in a very fluid manner. So it's as much as it's me tossing like technical and brain and like some of my own like creative background in my own respect. Carol and Adam bring their own philosophies, their own creativities, their own ways.
Yeah, you are complementary to each other.
Yeah, which is, I don't think I'd be able to develop or architect something like this without kind of like that creative input either. So.
Yeah. Thanks. I can definitely envision the use cases there. The answer I'm also still simultaneously seeking is if, in terms of layers. So are the users, for example, me, if I want to create an AR entity, can I do that myself with Unity, for example, in the layer that you are creating, or are you guys creating different AR entities and objects yourself, or how should I see that?
Yep. So we're actually not using Unity, specifically because it's no knock against Unity. Unity is good, but for
it was just the one I had top of mind.
Of course. But we're basically just trying to leverage what native devices have. So that's actually where we're building an editor that you can go in. You can say, for example, upload a photo. You can choose how something is designed. Basically, if you want to put up a video, or if you want to put up an ask for something, if you have the file for it, you can put it in AR, you can manipulate it, you can save it, and you can publish it globally, where people can then interact with that scene. And one of the really early things we realized was the barrier to entry to creating something in AR has to be really low. Not everybody is a Unity developer. Not everybody is a code software engineer.
No, I'm definitely not. So I hope it will be easy.
Yeah. And the really cool thing is from day one, like the way that I look at it is we'll have people building on it. We'll have people experimenting with it. We'll have people, we'll publish all our code on GitHub. We'll basically like make it open and accessible so we can have things rapidly like improve such that day one is actually the dirtiest like version, quote unquote, that we have, and from there it gets cleaner. The interface gets better because when you have 1,000, 5,000 people looking at something, saying and providing like their thoughts, inputs, on what something should look like, that's a calibrated product.
Really cool. I'm also interested. Are other projects doing simultaneous stuff? Because I see recently, actually before not, but recently I see some AR projects popping up. So if they are doing kind of the same, of course they will not do the same, but how do you see you guys yourself differentiating from other similar AR projects that try to establish kind of the same thing?
What's really cool, and I know I don't want to monopolize everything, so I'll just say my piece. But what's really cool is there's a bunch of different projects there, but I would say in terms of accessibility, and obviously there's a couple different projects. There's like OVR AI, there's Superworld, there's a couple other ones. But in terms of methodology, in terms of how we open things up to a user, or how we just store our data, like how we architect our data, how we interact with it, how we let users kind of like participate in that decentralized system. We're trying to decentralize everything as much as possible, and we're not trying to like barrier access for like a token. We're not dropping like an ERC20 token and saying, hey, you have to purchase something using your unique currency, and we're trying to construct the system ground up from there. and nor are we building something like using like our own hex system. So we didn't split the Earth into arbitrary different like data hexes and say, hey, we made our own system, participate in it. We built using very natural things that already existed, geohashes, which are an already established system for looking at the Earth. And for all our data, it's completely decentralized. So you never have to purchase our own token. You never have to go through anything. We're using polygons, so gas fees are lower. There's just the way I look at it, it's just architecturally more advantageous because we're minimizing gas fees, we're decentralizing everything as much as possible, and we're building it such data behind it is as open as possible, meaning you can build other things on top of it. Disadvantage of a lot of other systems is they close their data in some way, or they centralize it, or they host it, because like for example, are you familiar with crypto voxels, or have you?
Absolutely.
What's actually really and kind of looking at this is they built the interface for crypto voxels to be open and accessible. Everyone can access it, but the actual data, like what you put inside your voxel, how you construct it, etc., from my knowledge, that's centralized or that's hosted. And you get what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's something that we're actually building like against, like all the metadata, all the base data, like every layer of data is built to be open. And that's, I think, what differentiates like us majorly, because it's Web3. If we don't have time to do it right the first time, we won't have time to get it, to fix it later.
I think it's a really fundamental point that you're mentioning there, Michael. But I can also see in conversations I have with friends who are just getting their feet in the water with Web3 and thinking, why does everything have to be so ultimately incredibly decentralized? Can we not have a hybrid one, for example? And you gave the crypto voxels as an example. Is there a reason? Why we want to? There is a reason, but what's in your view the reason why we want to have completely decentralized?
Yeah, what's really interesting is with a decentralized model, or with a decentralized model or decentralized method of processing or working with data, it's very first and foremost, it's very resilient. There's no like, for example, if Facebook goes down for 4 hours, it goes down for everyone for 4 hours. With a decentralized system, you have resiliency. There's no single individual or country that can necessarily.
You have multiple nodes that can
or interrupt service. What's also really cool is it takes us, the like developers and all of this, out of the more out of the equation, because we're not able to basically pull a fast one on people, right? Is we're not able to go in and say, hey, we're implementing like we're changing the price to be $1 million per thing, or we're changing the marketplace fee to 20%. When we decentralize things, including our marketplace, including our assets, we make things very in the hands of the user. And that's the big shift, I think, from Web 2 to Web 3 is in Web 2, people are users. In Web 3, people are owners. People participate in a system and they own part of it. Just like how if you go into a Discord, you're part of that Discord. You have like, you feel like you belong. You feel like you have a stake in that community. And that's the thing. When you own something in Web 3, you have a stake in it. You want to see it improve. You want to see it get better. And that's kind of like the sort of thing that we're going with. My final statement on that, there are benefits to centralization, like, data and simplicity and all of this, but I think it's worth it to have that be open to everyone, because then you have, you don't run the risk of the philosophical principal agent problem, where you have one person acting on behalf of the philosophical problem, if you create, but that avoids that problem.
Thanks. What do you want to say, Adam?
Yeah, there's an interesting example recently. Are you familiar with Hen, the marketplace?
Yeah, I know.
This artwork. The person that founded Hen decided to close it, and within 24 hours, the community built another one that's exactly the same. that would never happen with Facebook. That would never happen with Twitter because they're centralized platforms. That's a super fun idea to think about. I thought that was a fairly recent.
That's actually an extremely vivid example. That's as much vivid as you can get it. Yeah, thanks for adding it there. So what I'm interested in, I can definitely see that I want to buy some cool stuff as an individual user, but I'm curious, when you guys were thinking of creating this, did you have were you designing this with the focus on individual end users or on organizations or both, or where's the focus?
Yeah, to me, where from was just like thinking about how we interact with the internet and digital goods. What is the next phase of that? And we collectively came to the realization that a digitally enhanced real world is the answer, and we should build a platform that supports that, rather than building another video game where we have a character and it's this world that has zero relationship with the real world. How can we build, support our natural human behaviors, digitally enhance our surroundings to improve life, and how can the metaverse be impactful and positive? That's kind of like where I was coming from when, in the early stages of, brainstorming this and how we build this.
Yeah, it was something that if one person could benefit off it, two people could, how could we build something such that if one person could benefit off it, how could two people benefit off it? How could 10 people, scaling? And
just an example. Let's say I am a retailer, for example, and I want to leverage what you guys are doing for my retail business. Are there some use cases there, as an example?
Yep. So what we're building, you could fundamentally put up shops, you could create galleries, you could basically, we're actually working right now, we're trying to secure some technology partnerships, but essentially is facilitating payments through augmented reality, such that you no longer have to have an explicitly physical register or location in order to accept payment for something. So yes, retail, all that, very possible, and the case is absolutely there.
So then
day one is going to be advertisement for sure. That day one on the beta, you're going to be able to place advertisements, and I see that popping off pretty early.
Yes, Caroline?
Especially with advertisement, if you think about it, right now you cannot have a piece of Times Square if you want to advertise your company. But with Rift, if you're lucky enough to be a person to purchase that piece of land, you can always have your advertisement on Times Square, So I think that is also the ideology. So you don't have to be a big company that, has a lot of assets to be capable of inputting your own content into the land you purchase. And you're not limited to which one you can purchase. You just have to, go and do it.
That actually begs a really interesting question spontaneously, which is, now you see Decentraland. I think H&M opened recently a store there, and other brands like Nike are doing similar stuff in other worlds. So why would they, for example, not be choosing for that approach, but rather using for the AR approach? What are the inherent benefits for those organizations there? Because now the early use cases seem to be taking place in those kind of 3D metaverse, which are not necessarily AR oriented.
I think right now the way that we're being sold augmented, the metaverse, the way that we're being sold right now, we're being sold by Facebook, Google, and these platforms that are selling. They're justifying the purchase of, let's say, an Oculus headset. We got to figure out how to use these things. The metaverse makes a ton of sense. So it's, as it sits today, that's how the metaverse is being presented, is this virtual reality world, and Facebook pretty much is running it, and you have to own their headset or their sunglasses in order to interact with it, right? I think, as we come along in the next months, years, there needs to be other solutions, and we need to figure out a way that isolation isn't the prerequisite to participate in the metaverse. How can we use this as a tool to support connection and enhance our surroundings?
Yeah, and adding to that, actually, if you think about accessibility, first thing that we said, it is not that fully accessible for, metaverse to be you need some kind of VR set, or at least, time. Because if you think about it now, you need to disconnect yourself from the physical world to access the metaverse. And you have to have certain amount of free time to do that, like after work, before work, at night. And with Rift, the AR technology will allow you to use it anywhere you want to go. So you're in the subway, you can use it. You're at work, you can use it. You're in the bathroom, you can use it. You're going to sleep, you can use it. It's like enhancing your actual everyday life instead of you making time to go to metaverse.
And maybe to add on that, I'm not working at Rift AR, but now we don't have the cost of buying an Oculus Quest for $450. That's also kind of an advantage. And speaking of cost, what is the earning model aside from selling the whitelist full and everything? What's the earning model long term for you guys for Rift AR?
Yeah, so there's a couple. Not locking anything like in stone, but there's a couple different models that we're playing with, including like from our initial mint, looking at, okay, if you lease something, like let's say you lease your plot of land for advertising, or someone else wants to build on it or anything, is do we take a small percentage whenever someone leases off that? Like, for example, on Axie Infinity, whenever you breed an Axie takes a small fee based off that. So do we, at what point do we, if people are using action, if people are committing actions to a blockchain like that, how do we begin to get in? So leasing is one. Selling rifts, I'm a really big fan of a project called CryptoFunks, and they basically took completely, they got banned off OpenSea because American DMCA laws, so they just built their own 0% fee marketplace. That actually really inspired me.
0%?
Yeah, 0%. And that's the thing, is like, why should a middle person insert themselves into that? You know what I mean? So so that's kind of like also the battle is, how do we build something such that we're able to make a long-term sustainability, we're able to eat, we're able to obviously sustain ourselves in the development of this, but also not be so hand of godish that, it's like, hey, if you want to participate in this, you have to buy our token, use our marketplace, whatever it is. You get what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so that's something where we're playing around with a different model, we're with a couple different models. Nothing is like completely set in stone yet, because of course that's where our community is one of the most important things. Trust is very easy to break, takes a very long time to build up, and we recognize that completely.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. When are you guys going live? When can we use this?
So ideally, we're looking at, our timeline that we're looking at is like February, March, but one of my favorite examples for this is Cyberpunk 2077. We're going to go through a testing period. We're going to go through everything to make sure everything's like consistent for day one. But if we find there's a couple things that need more polish, or there's a feature that is day one that we need to make work more consistently smoother or better, we don't want to rush ourselves like Cyberpunk 2077 did and deliver a subpar product, because that's something that you have a lot of pump and dumps in the space, and a lot of people that the first thing we want to do is deliver day one utility, and if we can't even do that, then it's like we don't want to disappoint. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We prefer quality in that aspect.
Facts.
Interesting. Yeah, I can definitely see also a lot of people just investing to flip short term, and perhaps affecting the project by pumping and dumping. What I'm interested in, where do you guys see yourself in, let's not fast forward too long, but let's say 2 years. What do you hope to have established at that time?
I think it'd be pretty cool if people were, owning digital land, building immersive host digital activations in public galleries. I think it'd be pretty cool if we could end up in a place where cities are beginning to apply this in how they think about build our cities digitally, and how do we support the communities with digital infrastructure. So I think that would be pretty incredible if we could see cities beginning to look at the metaverse as a foundation to just build on top of the city.
Really cool. By the way, Adam disappeared visually, but he's still alive, and we still have his audio, just to make sure. All right. And yeah, to close off with, I see so many possibilities with AR. Let's say, Michael, you weren't constrained to 24 hours a day of developing. What do you think are applications that could be developed or designed with AR that are currently not looked at all for that could be developed in the future? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. So I just want to preface real quick. There was some research where out of China, they were experimenting with 6G technology, where it achieved over 200 gigabytes a second,
Wow.
which for Call of Duty games in a single second. So if you're talking about what we can...
How many Call of Duty games?
4 Call of Duty games in a second, to over 200 gigabytes a second with 6G.
Oh.
The idea being is, if you can create systems that can, 200 gigabytes is a large amount for any AR assets, but you're talking about full movies. You're talking about completely immersive, like 4K, 8K models that are interacting and have their own logic, and applications that can be built entirely within AR and that can be consumed directly on the device immediately. So I don't think there's really in terms of what can be built, I don't think we can begin to even fathom what that is, because our devices right now simply don't really allow for us to really explore that in an extended manner. But I think the least we can do is try and architect for something that could accommodate something like that. So I'm just saying is that if I can't play an augmented Call of Duty or an augmented like Cyberpunk or like something like that in 5 years, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Oh wow! That's quite a statement. Really looking forward to that. So the last question before we wrap up, at Metaverse Mentors, we are always interested in how this Web3 and Metaverse kind of application can solve real world problems and not be merely about fun. What could you guys give us there?
There's quite some utility that you could add up to the AR that simply just makes your life a bit easier. So, for example, the payment methods, or getting rid of material assets in the real world because we take space. You could think about a lot of things. For example, right now, if you think about real estate, it's extremely expensive. If you want to display your artwork somewhere and you want to have art gallery, having an art gallery in the real world in a physical way, it's very expensive. You have to either own the building or pay expensive rent. And with AR, you can still display your art without actually having it in a physical, state. So there is quite some of utility that you could add. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I hear that and I'm like, I want to jump on it. There's actually a lot of industrial use cases that come from it. For example, if you're looking at something in industrial and educational, if you're looking at a model of the human body or of an engine or of something, or if you're even programming visually, right, you can begin to model that and view that in augmented reality. You can expand things and look inside things like with depth that you would not be able, with depth that you would not be able to have like using a real asset. So for augmented reality, it's basically if you can walk around somewhere and, for example, you see a pattern that you can scan and it tells you everything about what that pattern is attached to, whether it's code, whether it's anatomy, whether it's a machine, or whether it's even something about our society. I think what happens is we take away the limit of physical representation for information. So I think for usage, name an industry, you can. I think there's actually a case for HoloLens and Microsoft use it for industry purposes. But that's sorry.
Wait, I just want to interject before I forget. This one I'm going to use as a quote on the social media. We take away the limits for physical representation. I really like it because that's huge and that's very compelling and easy to understand how AR solves problems. Sorry to interrupt, Karolina, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I think usage is only limited to your own imagination and creativity, because honestly, you can use it in any matter you would like. It's allowing you for so much. You just have to, if you think about what you want in that, I think you'll be capable to access it in AR. If you want to see 3D models, movies, play music, do art, have, social media and AR, everything is possible, honestly.
Sounds really limitless. Do you, Adam, I see you want to give an answer as well, and I wanted to just ask you.
Yeah, for sure. Something brief. There's one of my favorite Banksy quotes is, graffiti is one of the few tools you have if you have almost nothing. And I like the idea that we're building a new frontier and there's an opportunity to create new generational wealth. And we're not, if you're early in on this, you have a chance to just change everything in your life. And that's what I love, is just offering new opportunities to people.
Really powerful. Thanks. Where can the listeners and viewers find you guys? What's the name of the Discord? What are the channels to go to? Where can we find you guys? And what are the things you said you will probably go live in February, March, or where should we look forward to?
Check out our Twitter.
Twitter and Discord.
If you go to our Twitter, you can find a link to our Discord, find a link to our website with more information. Follow us. The Twitter is RiftAR World, WRLD for world. And that's where you can get all the information. Jump into our Discord and hang out with us.
Okay, got it. I will caption it in the link so the people will see it. All right. Well, then let's wrap up here. Thank you guys for your time. It was a really insightful conversation. I've learned a lot about AR and some new applications, and I really like how some quotes were thrown into it as well. Forgive me for reusing them. Hopefully they are not copyrighted. And I'm really looking for what you guys are going to do in 6 months, and probably perhaps we can run this again to see how much X the Discord group has scaled up to that point.